games and for so long is actually discovering the entire world. And yeah, there's some familiar mechanics at the end game and stuff like that, which is awesome for people. But I certainly want to really, I'm very excited to see people discovering the new things and getting so excited about it.
I can tell you're amped for watching people go through that discovery process. Maybe even diving in yourself 100%. I mean, I love sitting there in Path of Building, as many of us do, but I am very excited for that.
Well, yeah, as we were
new
saying,
discovery process for a while.
I think you were saying how much you were part spreadsheet. I think I was saying I'm like maybe 60% spreadsheet, 40% discovery, and that's my play archetype. You know, so
coming up with our player profiles, Timmy spikes, and things like that for both of Exalt characters.
The discovery part of me is ultra excited, and I'll mind you, that's coming from someone who kind of knows all the content. I'm still, because there's something different about making it versus actually playing
이제 됐나?
players, seeing them discover it, uniques being linked in chat and on Reddit and all of that is just so cool. So we're gonna get a massive dose of that, and it is like genuinely exciting to just see how people are gonna think. You know, what's worth 1 chaos or what's worth 10 chaos, what's worth if chaos is even the metric.
Is chaos even the currency that people settle on?
We were arguing about this earlier.
I'm pretty sure that 1 C spam in chat might turn into 1 E because, like, you know, 1 Exalt. Given that Exalt is now,
I think it'll be chaos.
People probably
ad remove will still be.
People don't appreciate, by the way. Like, so when we say we've increased, you're going to be getting multiple Exalts in Act 1. In POE2.
세팅 한번 하기 힘드네
increased
진짜.
that a lot. It isn't just like an idle, you know, like.
I can see Exalts becoming the new kind of like chaos.
Yeah, I think actually that
chaos
will
being
be.
the new divine.
I actually agree. But we'll see.
That's my point.
But it's a new economy, right? Like, who even knows? The market will have to.
But I like that we're already arguing about this. It's good fun. So, do you have some kind of like beta release roadmap for updates and things like that for people to look forward to?
I mean, we certainly did have one 6 months ago when we were. Now that we're sort of getting to release, it's like, oh my god, like, you know, we have to look at it. So, I mean, look, I don't think it'll be any less than 6 months. And I think it could easily end up being more. I certainly don't want to. I mean, look, 2025. I think really want to be, you know, full release in 2025. I don't really want to be spending more than a year. That would be pretty crazy. But
소리가 안 난다고요?
Get all the content finished and all that sort of stuff.
소리가 안 나?
You know, we always feel like we underestimate these things, and of course we have to learn what we need to learn. We have to get the game to the point when it is really fun. You know, we have to make sure that like all of the things, like, you know, we've got the difficulty right for all the players, we've got the economy right, like all the stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to sort out. So I kind of have a feeling that the first few weeks at least are going to just be a scramble of like, you know, crap, someone like worked this crazy thing out and we found this thing, and like, you know, that's always scary, you know, because it's just when we add content to POE1, it's like at least the kind of base of stuff that we have is kind of, you know, well tested and people know kind of what's going on with it. But here it's like just complete new world. We're the kind of game that has a lot of ability for players to do stuff that we wouldn't anticipate. You know, we have the you know, just the way support gems work and everything like that. So there's certainly a lot of worry that like there's just going to be builds that are like completely ridiculous that we just never anticipated, combining certain things in different ways we don't expect. You know, with hundreds of support gems, it can be like that. So you know, that's going to be an interesting one.
It will happen.
Yeah, for sure.
It is inevitable, right? Like there's nothing we can even do about it because you need hundreds and thousands of hours of testing to be able to do that with what can only be done with hundreds of thousands of players. But that's also the magic of it all, which is awesome.
That's why I was asking you, like, are you literally really doing 12 classes and 36 sentences, like actually?
Yeah, that's absolutely. We have we know what we want to do with
it's
all
a bit
that
unhinged.
Stuff. It is a bit, but you know, we like a challenge. I mean, you know, a studio that produces a passive skill tree like we do clearly has a bit of a glutton for punishment with regard to just like mixing.
You totally could have done 6 and then like, I don't know, added more later in an expansion or something.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could have. I mean, look, this is the plan. This is the plan. You know, I mean, like as people go through early access, it's going to feel like there's just expansion content coming up pretty frequently. Just because, you know, we have all the stuff that kind of, you know, got a lot of the way through. So yeah, there's stuff to come. I mean, look, I'm pretty sure. Like, I really want to get the Druid out. Like we announced it, we've talked about it. It's a lot of fun. You know, I'm keen to get that out there as soon as we can. You know, the Huntress we've talked a bunch about as well. There's like those kinds of things. I think we'll be able to move towards those pretty quick. But you know, there's obviously more to do.
The other thing you mentioned talking roadmap like things, is we've always been, it's hard to predict because a lot of what will happen is, and what we leave space for is reacting to what the players want. And so if you plan everything for so long, you're going to have very, very, very slow reaction times to fixing, or adding certain content where there may, maybe the issue is like, the campaign needs more of this, or this class needs more of this, or something. So if you're planning, then you're going to be delivering on what they want solved like a year down the line or even longer. And where we like to remain very, very dynamic and like, you want to be able to fix that stuff like, well, this is the main problem. Like, sure, obviously need more than a week sometimes, most of the time. But we want it generally to be that the next releases, expansions, updates, whatever, can alleviate as many of those problems as possible. So, yeah, you try not to get too strict with the planning has generally been our philosophy, because especially when it comes to actually having the live service product out, because that is very, very important. Otherwise, you're never going to seem like you're doing what people want, and what are you doing if not that?
So that actually is a good point. Like, I was going to ask, what do you folks, what does the team want out of the beta? Because obviously it's like a good way to market the game, but it's also key to shaping the game in the future. Like, an actual beta, it's not just early access.
I think one of the most important things, I think it's going to be really good for the development team to get back into a live mindset and like get it back into the idea of like, okay, everything we make is shipping. So, like get back into this, people are seeing, like actually getting back into that, and like, and like being able to sort of see directly, like, okay, we make something, it goes in the game, people like it, don't like it, like that kind of stuff. Like, and that really, like, that has been our studio for like most of its lifetime. Obviously, we, before we released POE1, it wasn't, but after that point, I mean, we are a company, like, we are a company that likes to think that we can do live service better than anyone else. Like, that is our goal. And so, like, getting back into that again, for everyone in the studio, so that everyone's working on things that are going to be releasing within, certainly in less time than 3 months away, is going to think be really, really good for us again. I look forward to just being able to do that, because these long-term, like really long-term things, like that span over years, it's like you go so long without proper feedback, like stuff kind of gets made, and then like, it's not really in a real game, and so it doesn't get
probably
tested
lose
properly.
Perspective.
And you absolutely lose perspective on this stuff. So I think that that's just going to be really great to get back to that again.
I honestly, as you said, it is early access, it is a beta period, and I'd say, personally speaking, the thing that, and we mentioned it briefly about the character balance and the builds that are broken and all that, that's obviously pretty useful to me, right? Plus we have other systems in there, like, the checkpointing system, right? You have to kill the boss in one life. These are things we haven't mass tested, and obviously other games have, and they work, and that's awesome. There are other things like, the end game system is a little bit less forgiving in that if you die, you fail the map, right? These things are things that we obviously need to test and iterate on in the future by adjusting the difficulty and stuff like that. And especially as you get towards this point of, the end game, like, okay, Act 1 has been tested like crazy. Right? And you get less and less testing as it goes on, because you get less people, they've just been around for less time. And so, it's going to be a huge amount of iteration and feedback, and from the players and us just, reevaluating all the stuff. And the thing is, we're always dynamic about that stuff. Like, we'll just change things if it's wrong. We'll redesign it. We'll come up with a new way. Jonathan's a firm believer of if A doesn't work and B doesn't work, then we'll find C, we'll find option C, we'll find option D, and we'll keep changing things, and we'll make it work. So, it's going to be a lot of that iteration on our design decisions, how forgiving, because, like, the game is pretty hard. It can be pretty hard. And so when you're on that fine line of, like, if things are difficult, it's not too easy to know if you've tilted one way or the other. So, finding what everyone agrees should be the common corrected difficulty is something that I will obviously be paying very, very, very close attention to.
It's a pretty hard thing to nail down when you are making the game. And so we've seen that a lot, where you folks have been pretty willing to change and then rechange again some of the core features like flasks and the waypointing system and portals. And you're keeping that kind of mindset going into the beta then?
Of course. I mean, look, we're always willing to change stuff. Like that flask thing, like the most recent change to that was like ultra recent. Like, have we even had like a closed beta of that yet? Was it? No, I think we haven't. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's way better than it was. Like, it's the things have improved a lot. And honestly, like that's one of those things we've been wanting to do, something to sort out flasks for ages. And it really came about because when actually looking at what new players were having trouble with when they were playing, Flask piano was actually like, even from the very beginning of the game, actually ended up being one of those things that like people just had probably just the manual dexterity required to like hit all your different Flask keys, and then you have to know when one of your flasks run out so you can move to the next one, and like various things like that. Like all that stuff actually was like just a weirdly large amount of mechanical complexity right from the very beginning. And then even at endgame, I don't think it was really that satisfying either, because you ended up with like, you know, just like having to press all these buttons all the time, and obviously it's all utility flasks that people are using at endgame. And then we kind of tried to band-aid this in POE1 with the you know, some of the Flask automation stuff that was added there, but there was still this idea that that you're still more powerful if you don't automate. So therefore, you know, like it's like, you know, it's like there's that trade-off there. So
you're just more powerful if you get mage blood. Really,
sure, I guess, sure.
And then it's all automated, and you're very powerful.
Yeah, sure, all right. But you know, so the point is, effectively, like the charm stuff that we're doing effectively means that you no longer, the game is making that decision of like, you know, that stuff will be automated. You no longer have to do that like crazy Flask piano to get the best, you know, the best out of your character. And I think that is definitely a step in the right direction. And the other thing as well is it actually makes the crafting more meaningful, I think, on the flasks, because when you've got like 5 slots, then like the individual mods and the individual stuff like seems to tend to not matter as much. I mean, obviously, you know, people want instant recovery and things like that, but you know, like but like now it's like the actual, it's much more meaningful. Like on your life flask, the choice between do I want instant or do I want way more like life, like that kind of stuff actually can be a lot more meaningful once you've only got one. So yeah, I think it is a lot better personally.
You have we'll jump ahead to Floss since we're on the topic. You have locked in effectively the fact that there's a mana flask there now, so there's always going to be a mana flask slot. And how does that tie into your design for mana? And are we always going to be using a mana flask slot, or if we solve another way, what does it do?
You can absolutely solve another way, and then you'll just have a flask slot that isn't doing anything for sure. But I think it kind of has to work that way, because we really don't want. Yeah, because like once you sort of start to get into changing that around, I feel like the system sort of starts to break with regard to like, you know, the feeling of like I know where mana is, I know where my health is, like that kind of stuff. That being said, you know, we've always got uniques and stuff like that. I believe there's already
there is a unique that allows you to equip 2 life flasks.
But the thing is, then that's a build choice that you're making, so it's a little bit different, and that's fine. But yeah, I think the system as it works now it's a lot easier.
So it does sound like on the mana side of things then that there are going to be multiple angles of solving mana, not necessarily
Of course. I mean, so we've got Leech edition number 475 of how it works, and we've finally got it right this time. So you know, and yeah, I think it works, and I think it's good. So I think that Leech will be more common.
I'm not going to have to like crack out the Leech diagram showing the different buckets and things like that.
I was saying, I think that Leech might be. No, I think. I was going to say Leech is one of the topics in the studio that has wasted the most designer time of anything in the industry. But I actually don't think it's that. I think the actual worst offender is what stats should Dex give you. I think that is like that one has wasted there's so many arguments about that.
I feel like that one's never come to the fore. Like we know about the Leech one,
but no one is happy about giving accuracy. But no one has a better idea than what accuracy that it can give. And then, like everyone's going to come up with like in chat a bit. I bet they'll be like saying, oh, you know, it can give this or this, whatever. But there's like yeah, seriously, there's been endless arguments about that topic. It's like, it's outrageous.
Yeah. You've got me thinking about it now.
Yeah.
I mean, speed would be good, but then it's probably too much.
Something like Dex, you just can't.
Dex stacking speed.
Oh, we can get all the designers down here right now.
Yeah, I know. We'll just have it out again. We'll just have it out again.
The longest Q&A of all time.
Yeah.
It's already going to be that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just like, you start the day, and you're like, all right, here are the problems we need to solve, and then you're like,
what about?
But then accuracy on Dex comes up again.
No, it's 3 p.m. and we're still discussing dexterity.
Yeah.
So I go home, just make it accuracy again.
Yeah, exactly. That is literally how it comes back to accuracy every time.
This is okay.
Yeah.
Rewinding a little bit, we can't forget our roots with Path of Exile 1, of course. So for the PoE 1 enjoyers, what is the plan for PoE 1 during the course of this beta? Is there going to be leagues launching? Is it on the back burner?
Yeah, there absolutely will be leagues launching. Now, I don't know the exact date, but the plan is kind of late February. Yep. But I mean, look, we'll see what happens. I will admit Unfortunately, we did have to steal a few POE1 resources just towards the end here, which is kind of been a bit unfortunate. I really wish we didn't have to. But yeah, as I said, we kind of underestimated some of the stuff. But everyone is going to be going back to POE1 again for the February League, and you know, we're going to make sure that we can do that. Like one of the things that was a big problem for our studio when we had a long-term project and a short-term project is that. You know, you've always had that thing of like you always want to work on the short-term thing.
Yeah.
So now that we've got 2 short-term things coming up, I actually think it's going to be a bit easier to prioritize in some respects because,
Funnily enough,
you know, it's like it's just like all that stuff is then you know, is like coming up soon. So, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we need to get that POE1 expansion out next.
Yeah, obviously, you know, I just want to always make it clear that, you know, the reason why things can't be so planned out is, again, we're just releasing this game.
Yep.
Obviously, we pivoted to endgame, and then that needed more resources. And then, of course, combined with the fact that, you know, things obviously change. There are unpredictable things in the environment we can't necessarily guarantee. And then, of course, you have, you know, Christmas coming up and all of that, right? There's so many variables to consider, but we also don't know how much time is going to be invested necessarily or need to be invested into live operations for post-release. How many problems are going to go wrong? How many builds are there? How many of the uniques are broken? How many, you know, and where do all these resources go? There are like just millions of variables here to consider, and so like it can get very, very difficult, especially at this time. But once you release, you have a bit of a grace period, so to speak, where well, more like a period of extreme amounts of fire, where we're putting out fires everywhere. But we have a period where we're fixing everything. You get everything stable, and then we're going to be like, all right, let's recalibrate, figure everything out, and what is our plans, and then establish all of that, based also on the feedback we get from that, you know, period where everything's on fire. Not to make it sound like it's going to be bad, but that is the inevitability, is that there's always problems.
Well, hopefully it appears good from a player perspective, but there's always going to be like, oh my god, people found this, and you know, like, we
don't have to see all the fires.
Like ideally the best thing is when we're able to fix some kind of exploit before people even hear about it. And when I say exploit, I'm just talking about some broken thing. Like if we we obviously normally have to worry about like the whole mid-league nerf concept, but it's like if you can deal with something within like an hour or two of it happening, then it's like you're kind of okay because you know, no one had a chance to kind of like everyone didn't swap their build over to it or whatever. But yeah, we're gonna have to be really on the ball for POE2 just because there's so many things that are new.
Well, I mean, look, we have several bosses with several elevators. How many of them can be pushed up the elevator? You know what I mean? Well, that's what I mean. When I say a fire, I'm talking about bosses getting pushed up elevators. Like, that's not okay.
I am liking my mercenary flashbang knockback is very fun.
Right. Yeah, you need to look into that, by the way. The whole flashbang.
I feel like you're going to nerf my build.
This is when he's finding fires already. No, these are the fun things. Discovering that stuff can be very fun for the players. It's just internally, it's like, oh no, what are we doing? It can get a little bit panicky after release, you know, and it you know, there's lots of things going on. You're like, oh geez, what do I solve first? But obviously, you know, it's the same as POE1. We're good at it at this point.
Got some experience. Indie belts. You aren't going to be torturing us with like releasing beta stuff at the same time as POE2 league launch, POE1 league launches.
Yeah, the plan is to keep them separated a bit from each other so that you know, you get a chance to play.
Don't
with
make me choose.
Yeah.
So we saw a cinematic, to put it lightly. It was that was quite epic, and I know has been cooking for quite some time, and that was pretty exciting. But we've also seen just a lot of story stuff happening on a much higher level than previously now. So stepping up your storytelling game here a bit. Yeah,
so we're really wanting to make sure that the storytelling in POE2 is much better than what it was in POE1. Like, you know, there's a lot more kind of, I guess, like that kind of like stuff with the introductions to boss fights and the outros and things like that, like all that stuff. We've just got a lot more storytelling going in. All of those things. We do have the intro cutscene. There's also kind of like light, like between the acts. There's these kind of like more kind of motion graphic type cutscenes, just kind of establish things. And there might be some more surprises later on in the game as well. Not in early access, unfortunately. Later on that we can see as well. But ultimately, we just want to make sure that like I think a lot of people who got through the POE1 story had no idea what was happening by the end. And so effectively we want to make sure that is not the case this time around, that people really are able to absorb things. But
guilty.
One thing I will say, though, is that it's ultra important to us that we don't break the feeling that like when you're playing a second time, that it feels like we don't want it to feel annoying the second time.
We were talking about this morning. About you don't take the control out of the player's
exactly.
hands.
So yeah, I'm personally a believer of the fact that if you just when you change the camera position for a cutscene, immediately it feels way more annoying. Like because there's this whole thing of like if you click on an NPC and like the camera changes position, like sure when you're playing through the campaign the first time, that kind of thing is like like that can be cool. But then if you're like you're playing through the second, third, fourth, fifth time, you want to be able to go to the NPC and go click, 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 and just get past, and without it feeling like you've had to sort of worry about anything. So yeah, like effectively, we want to make sure that it's still that we still have that, because ultimately, we're a game you expect people to play through many times. So ideally, we can kind of deliver both the situation where the first time you play through it, it feels like an amazing story that you're getting, that you're taking seriously, that you're understanding, that there's like all those sort of touch points and little things just all through, while also maintaining the fact that if you know what you're doing, it's like you don't have to go talk to some quest giver just to get a quest. Like you can just go do the thing, without having to talk to someone about it first. So that kind of stuff is really important just to make that stuff work well when you know what you're doing.
Yeah, you said something this morning that stuck with me, where you said like Path of Exile is a game where the player's meta knowledge is allowed and
yes,
encouraged.
Absolutely. So
you're allowed to cheat the quests.
Effectively, yeah. So effectively, there's what the character knows and there's what the player knows, and in our game, what the player knows needs to be sufficient as far as like being able to progress the storyline. If you don't want to have it so you just talk to NPCs just to find out something you already knew as a player.
Yeah, like if you kill this boss, you get the next area's waypoint. So you just like kill it, log out, log in, waypoint, right?
I love doing that.
Meta knowledge.
Yeah. So you explained to me the other day the